Henry Tyler says, I'm hot and I must be hot. My name is Brenda Perryman, and welcome to Table Talk with Brenda Perryman right here on TV 33, WHPR, Comcast 20 in Detroit. And I am happy to be here, and I would like to introduce today's co hosts, and they we'll introduce them in just a minute. I want to welcome you. I want to say Gold University of Dayton in the NCAA. They made the Elite Eight. Nobody thought. Here are my co-hosts today.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Ajamu, owner of the Ajamu Group. We produce the Multicultural Media Luncheon during the Detroit Auto Show.
Tamika Ashford, Public Relations Consultant.
Hi, Dr. Rose Moulton, speaker, psychologist, and author of Bloom 7 Steps to Personal Transformation.
Welcome, and thank you, Tamika, for sitting in for Tiffany today. I really appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thank you,
Yeah,
ladies. Thank you.
And as our tradition, we do on this day, An African American Life in Detroit, written by Mr. Ken Coleman. He doesn't make up the facts, he just takes history and he put it in such a convenient way for us. And on this day, in 1971, the Temptations have a #1 single, #1 in the nation, Just My Imagination. Anyway, it's the group's third chart-topping single and the last to feature founding members Eddie Kendricks and Paul Williams. I kind of cry over that. I remember that. Every night on my knees I pray. Dear Lord, hear my... What do you all know about that song? Oh, because they're classics. Classics
That's
never
right.
go out of style.
That's true. That's true.
Well, we have a lot to talk about today because, and Dr. Rose has to leave a few minutes early, so we want to make sure that we get through most of the topics. And everyone, if you want to call in on the topics, you can call in at 313-868-0342, 868-0351. And this week they had a kind of upheaval for same-sex marriage. What do you think about what happened? They got the ban. The ban was dismissed by Judge Freeman, and a lot of gay people took out their licenses last Saturday, and some of them, about 300, got married.
Yeah, that's what they
And
said.
then on Monday, the ban was put back on, or there was a stay.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think about same-sex marriage anyway? I mean, I hate to call people out to say what they think, but what do you?
Call folks out, Brenda.
Yeah,
No,
no,
call us out.
so I'm just saying, people have equated that to the civil rights movement. I don't equate it to that, but
Yeah.
as far as people love who they love.
Yeah.
Yes.
I believe that.
Yeah, would you equate it that it is a civil rights movement though, but not equate it to our civil rights movement? Because isn't it about someone's civil rights?
Well, it is about civil rights
Rights.
as it
Mhm.
comes to the laws
Okay.
of the country. It
Yeah.
is. It's about civil rights because they've had to. It had to be approved. I guess just like voters' rights had
Yeah.
to be approved. But I just, I don't know. The theme song "We Shall Overcome" shouldn't be associated with
Yeah.
it. I don't think. But anyway, what are you all thinking about it?
Yeah, Brenda, ladies, I think it's two separate entities. Love in itself falls into a completely different category, and then the civil rights movement, injustices, things of that nature. So I don't think you can necessarily compare the two, but I know people do love who they love, and so when you love who you love, you fight for that.
Yes, you do
Yeah.
fight,
That's a
and
great
you
point.
fight for they want the opportunity to share,
Yeah.
to adopt one another's
Yeah.
children, and so forth.
And get their insurance just like they
Yeah.
would a
Benefits.
spouse.
Right,
Benefits.
right.
Yeah.
And the church frowns on that.
Mm-hmm. And this is the issue I have with it because you're supposed to keep church and state separate. And I think for the most part, the United States have a habit of being so egocentric. And what I mean by that is that we just assume everyone has Christian values. I posted something last week when it was the ban was overturned, and I think I lost a few Facebook friends as a result, because it was like, Christianity this, Christianity that. And one of the things that I pointed out is you're assuming that everyone is Christian. And we have to respect each person's beliefs, and we know a large part of those 300 people are Christian indeed, but your beliefs are your beliefs. And I just have a problem with people being so judgmental, or attaching their religious beliefs to something that is really a legal issue. One of the statements I heard yesterday when listening to one of the local talk radio stations, and I thought it was a good point, is that this is not about religious rights. This is about upholding the Constitution. And this is where I think it comes in, and people have to be able to separate the two, which we can have a hard time doing when we have our beliefs involved. So you have love and religion. Those are two very strong stands, that people will take on issues, and the results, what we're seeing now.
Well, I just don't. I think there should be a separation between church and state.
I agree.
A very definitive separation. And I just don't think that, who am I to tell you how to live your private life? I mean, that's me. And people have brought in parts of the Bible that they say, that it's an abomination and all of that. But I don't know that. Mm-hmm. I just don't know that. Cheryl, what are your thoughts?
I think, well, people are going to love who they want to love. I just, I think everybody deserves to be treated equally. Mm-hmm. But I know that's kind of pie in the sky, but,
well,
nobody's going to be who somebody else wants to be. It is part of the Constitution,
Mm-hmm.
All men
are created equal. Mm-hmm. And right now, Governor Snyder had to speak on it, and he was very vague. He was very vague. Yeah. It's like,
purposely.
Right. Mm-hmm. And his attorney general is the one who is really fighting this.
Yeah.
And he fights it mostly, to me, he's saying it's the law, but then he's fighting it on religious basis too. And I don't know. I just have a kind of issue about that. I don't know. I don't think any of us should be so self-serving. I see things that I don't like, but that's people's business.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it amazing that there's corporations, large corporations, that even before this law has been passed, recognize same-sex insurance rights.
Right.
Ford Motor Company, when my husband started with Ford Motor Company, we were going over the insurance information, and I'm like, what is this? And it was for same-sex partners. So they could, even before this law has become this big, now it's overturned in Michigan, that these major corporations were recognizing that and giving insurance rights to partners.
Absolutely. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because Governor Snyder says that same-sex marriage is legal, but not recognized.
Right, not recognized.
What is that? Okay, it's legal, but it's not recognized to the point of what?
I have no idea. That's the vagueness you were discussing.
Yeah,
correct?
It is very vague. I think he's doing that so he doesn't alienate anybody, but he is alienating people because he can't make a decision.
And whatever stance you take, you're going to alienate people.
Somebody.
It's just that's just what's going to happen, and you have to be okay with that in life. Whatever your beliefs are, there's going to be a segment of people who totally disagree with you, and that's okay.
Yeah, because this is not to do with same-sex marriage, but somebody put, which one of the Atlanta housewives don't you like? And I said, none of them. None of them. I mean, I don't care who cares.
Not a single one.
Right? Not a single one. I mean, all of them have their flaws and everything. That's a whole nother subject.
They wouldn't be my friends.
Oh no, I wouldn't have.
Certainly not.
That's
They
a
would
very
not
good
be my
point.
friends. They
How do you
wouldn't.
keep getting back together? Oh, I'm making money, so I got to keep getting back to you. with
Absolutely
you.
not. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the minimum wage. When I got my first job, my minimum wage was $1.15 an hour.
Wow.
$1.15 an hour was my wage, and that was. Of course, that was back in the show enough day. What was your first job?
Burger King, and I made $3.35 an hour.
And what year was that?
Oh gosh, 84, 83, 84.
What about you, Tamika?
Well, technically, I've been working since I was 11 years old.
Wow.
So my grandfather had a laundromat, and I worked every weekend and only made $14. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for
So
the entire.
14 a weekend.
Yes.
She's still a little upset.
At least he
about that.
paid you.
No,
From like
exactly.
8 a.m. to like 11 p.m.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, that's
So-
that was,
Yeah.
it was violating child labor law.
I mean, did he feed you?
I did eat. Yes, yes. Because there we had like a food area, and we had Chuck's burgers and ice cream and cookies.
Okay.
So I ate good,
Yeah.
but I worked hard for that $14.
Yeah, did you say Grandpa Lincoln?
Listen. I did try to put in for a raise, and that was a whole nother catastrophe. I didn't get it.
Well, what about after you left the auspices of your granddaddy? What was your first job after you left?
I did a lot with the city of Detroit with their police cadet program. So I did that for several years at the age of 14. But so far as fast food, I did work at Taco Bell. So
Yeah, I think a lot of people.
What were
work
they
at
paying then? What were they paying?
what was it like, $3 or $4 an hour or something?
Yeah, I know it was like that.
What about you, Dr. Rose?
My first was Top Hat hamburgers, and it was traumatic. It was traumatic. I worked there, and I wasn't old enough to work. I was, I think, at the time 13, so I took my sister's ID.
Oh, okay.
And then that sister decided she was going to work there too, so she took the older sister ID.
Oh.
So they were both calling us by names that were not our names, and they put me on the midnight shift. Both of us on the midnight shift. And when I tell you, right on Gratiot and McClellan, and that first week I worked was the fireworks week. And when folks, after they left the fireworks, started coming in there, I had never experienced anything like that in my life. And I started having dreams about Top Hat hamburgers. Luckily, it only lasted 2 weeks because I was able to get a job with the City of Detroit Youth Program and worked that for the next several summers, in addition to some co-op jobs.
Wow, wow, wow. That is amazing. Well, now they want, the fast food workers have been talking about $15 an hour. Do you think that that's going to happen?
No.
Absolutely not.
I don't either.
You know, $15 an hour. I actually did PR for one of the major black McDonald's owner here in the city of Detroit for 4 years. So I really had an opportunity to engage with the workers, over 1,000 workers, I believe. And I'm just not sure if the skill set matches the price. I do believe, however, there should be an increase, maybe $10, but 15. I just don't think that that's the right path. I think 15 is too much.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, because there are individuals that are graduating with undergrad degrees, starting their jobs out at $15
Absolutely.
an hour. And I think people should, if you're working a 40-hour week, if you're working full time, you should be able to meet your basic needs. I do feel that, and I think it's unfair when a person can work a 40-hour week, which they are at some of these fast food places, and they're not able to, you know, pay rent or just meet, again, those basic needs. But my thing is, if people are unsatisfied with what they're doing at the fast food industry, you know, you have to speak by walking away from it, finding something that's more commensurate to what you feel you deserve. And if you don't have the skills or education or skill set for that, then go and get the training that you need to make the money that's going to be consistent to the lifestyle you want.
I heard a gentleman at the factory. You know, the factory now, they've lowered the rate
yes,
that they're starting.
absolutely.
$15, yeah.
And it's like $15,
Yeah.
and they're humping in the
Yeah,
factory
yeah.
and everything. Sure, what do you?
I think I'm kind of similar to Dr. Rose. If you're working full time, I think that they should be compensated. I'm just going on the experience that I had when I was a kid and I worked there, and there were adults, and that was the only job that they had. And they had, you know, they were either single moms or they were married, and both mother and father worked at that Burger King. That was all they had. So, I mean, if that's their livelihood, You know, I mean, it just depends because I mean, you guys know when you work in fast food, you're not just cooking; you're cleaning up,
Cooking, cleaning.
you're counting
hard
inventory.
work.
It's the hardest work you'll ever do
It
in your
really
life.
is.
You earn
know.
every dollar.
Yeah, I mean, you're scrubbing the
Absolutely.
floors, the baseboards. You know,
bathrooms,
yeah,
yeah.
you know, it's a lot. It's hard work. So I mean,
And then dealing with the customers too,
Mhm.
which is a whole
Oh,
other
the
category.
Yeah.
the customer.
Customer complaints.
yeah. So I mean,
And then you didn't give me this, you didn't give me that, and sometimes you reach customers who try to confuse you on purpose. Don't you think?
or the quick change artist. That happened to me like my first week working at Burger King. Someone came in with a 20, and then before I could change it, they kept changing it, and before I knew it, I had given them like $50.
Wow.
What?
Yeah, they call them quick change artists. So they
Oh,
would
I
come
never
in
heard
and
that
say,
before.
you know, can I have change for this 20 while they're paying for their food? And then when they would take the money back, they would say, well, could you give me 2 5s for this? You know, and it
It
was
confuses
really,
you.
yeah, and then you
Okay.
can't remember what
Wow.
you've given them.
That's
So then
right.
that's when they
Slick.
instituted where if somebody gave you change, you had to lay it on the cash register near you. And then when that transaction was complete, you would put that money in and close the drawer.
Wow. Okay.
Because they were targeting our Burger King. But again, that's just something else that you got to deal with.
Contend with. You know,
Yeah.
I do feel though, if you are an employer of one of these fast food restaurants and you have an employee that is extremely valuable to your organization, then you should compensate that person accordingly. I'm a firm believer that pay should be based on merit,
Performance.
on
Yeah.
performance. That should be more of an issue at this point, especially in the fast food industry because it's not unionized.
Right.
So you have an opportunity. If I owned a fast food restaurant and I have an employer who's like employee who's invaluable, I'm going to want to keep that employee around. So I may pay that employee $15 an hour because I know how valuable they are to my establishment.
And maybe he's on that management track, or she is on
Absolutely.
that management track. That could help. They in this article they talk about this. This lady Patricia Fuller, she had a 2002 Mercury Sable. It broke down, so she took the bus to work for 2 months until she could save the $120 for repair.
Wow.
And then they talk about how she eats lots of noodles and potatoes because meat is too expensive, and she has an occasional treat. She goes to a free clinic for health care, an annual physical, mammogram, and pap smear. She's 48. She lives in Southwest Detroit, and she earns $7.40 an hour packing auto parts for a supplier part-time. She celebrated her 1-year anniversary at the factory last week. Her previous job was 14 years at a small General Motors operation in Wixom that assembled GM performance vehicles, but the 20-person operation closed and moved to Kentucky. Fuller, who made $9,026 last year, sells her plasma for extra money. You know,
Wow.
I mean, just think of the things people have to do to make the ends meet.
And she's working a job.
And she's working.
She's
Yeah.
working a job.
And it states she has children because that's a whole nother job in itself as well.
It doesn't state
Yeah.
that in this particular article. It doesn't state.
Yeah.
She says she does make a. She says it's hard. I can't save any money. It's all gone from when I get it. I haven't even bought a pair of shoes in about a year, so my feet ache a lot. I'm wearing run-over shoes. I feel like a Kentucky mule running the Kentucky Derby.
Wow.
Imagine the
Wow.
Kentucky.
And you
But-
add to that the fact that individuals in that situation have higher rates of mental health issues as well. That's ripe for depression.
Right.
And then they can't get help for that either. It's just an
It's
unfortunate
like you're a
existence.
Skinner rat. You're just going in this circle, and she says she can't even put aside any money. You know, and she said it would mean maybe I would be able to bury myself. Right now, I have to rely on the charity of family.
Wow.
If I can add, Brenda, I know that there are a lot of franchise owners who do a lot of in-kind things for their employees. I've seen it personally done where they've paid for funerals, they've paid for car repairs. So although we hear these types of stories, we know that they happen. I do think it's important to acknowledge the owners out here who are giving back to the community, that are paying for college tuition. There's a lot of in-kind things that I think the public, if you will, has to be mindful of that's happening. And a
the
lot of
public
times,
has to know about
yeah, a lot
it.
of
Yeah,
times
that's
those things aren't promoted. If you take
Yeah.
care of someone's rent, that's not necessarily going to make Fox 2 or Channel
Yeah.
4. If you take care of a funeral for an employee. So again, I think that is important for listeners or for watchers
Yeah.
to understand that there are a lot of backstage things that are taking place to look out for those persons.
Do you think that people will lose jobs if they raise the rate of the minimum wage? Because that's what a lot of the Republicans are saying. If you raise that, you're going to lose. People are going to lose jobs.
Well, you put more money into the economy. So, you know,
America will adjust, as it always
Exactly.
has.
Yeah.
America will adjust.
Because you think about it, from the 40 years ago or whenever, I can't even remember. It's about 45 years ago,
Okay.
really, that I was making $1.15 an hour. It should have gone. Oh, I made $1.25 the next year, but it still should have gone up much more than that.
Yeah,
What
in
you laughing at?
45
I
years.
thought I was rich. I worked 2 weeks and I had a check for $70. I cleared $70. Honey, I was rich. I took the bus downtown to Baker Shoes.
That'll
Baker
get barely give you a tank of gas now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Got
well,
all
I
the
was
money.
taking the bus, but it wouldn't buy a tank of gas in the car I have now. But seriously, it seems like it should have gone up much more throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely. To be in line with inflation. When you consider everything else that has gone up, because I know I read somewhere where they compared like 1970 costs and home costs and car costs. Like car typically, a brand new car off the assembly line typically equated to 20 to 25% of a person's yearly salary. And you think about that today.
Wow. Yeah. That might be
Wow.
the salary. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the bad thing about it is, cars. If you have to buy a used car, some of them are not reliable. So
Yeah.
you're, and some people buy these cars and they don't buy the insurance, so they have to pay out of their pocket, and then nobody wants to claim anything to the insurance company because
Yeah.
To raise your rates.
The
Yes.
rates.
your rates
Yeah,
would
I
go
know
up.
about
It's
that.
just like a
Yes.
never-ending.
Yeah.
It's a never-ending cycle. Some companies are paying their employees $10 an hour. $10. That's 8 hours. That's $80 a day. That's better than $7 and
Yeah.
20
Yeah,
bucks.
absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen with this? Do you think it's going to? I've seen the McDonald's owners, or I've heard them or read about them, complaining.
Well, if they value their company, like I said, you want to maintain good employees without a lot of turnover, and potentially increase your revenue, your business, by having employees there who are happy employees. That makes a big difference in your overall revenue as well. So maybe the business model just needs to be looked at in a different way.
And change. Your employee work life is so important.
Absolutely.
Now, Cheryl, you have your own business. Do you hire employees?
I use contractors. I use contractors a lot.
That's a good way
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
That way I can partner with other businesses like myself, and then they in turn, will, use their resources and bring in other talent. It's worked for me.
What about all of you do something with a business?
I was going to add about the financial piece to this. Here's the reality. If you don't pay your people well, if you don't take care of your people, if you keep it at the $7 or $8 range, then the person is going to give you a $7 or $8 skill set.
Yes.
And then they're going to steal,
Good
and they're
point.
going to be nasty to your customers, and some form or fashion, they're going to get the 15. So you either pay it at the front end or at the back end. I'm a firm believer of that.
That's a great
so
point.
you got to
Yeah.
always take care of your
Great.
people, even historically. You look at people like Mr. John H. Johnson, the Johnson Publishing Company, Ebony Magazine. When he started off in his 30s, he paid his folks more than what he was getting paid.
Wow.
But you have to do that sometimes.
To
Now, we
build
know
your-
that's not the situation with the franchise owners, but I am a firm believer that you have to take care of your people, because again, if you don't, it's going to come one way
Come
or
back
the
to
other.
haunt
Yeah.
you.
And you can kind of tell if you go in some businesses. Sometimes you walk in and the employees really have bad attitudes.
Yeah.
You can tell.
And you would too.
Yeah, if you,
You
do
would
it,
too.
yeah.
You got
But-
$5 in your pocket, and you know.
I'll say this, I hire contracted work to do my billing and to help me out with different events and things of that sort. But as a psychologist, I get a lot of patients in whose primary concern is dissatisfaction in the workplace. And they're stressed out, and that's a large portion of the people over the years that I've seen that have come in and they're dissatisfied with the way things are run, or the lack of just a consideration they're given by the employer. And trust me, like you just pointed out, these folks here, you're going to get it because oftentimes they go off on stress leave. And it still has to be paid by that employer, because of the dissatisfaction, and more than likely not, it's a good thing they go off when they do, because you don't want this person in your workplace flipping out.
Right. We know about that. The
Exactly.
post
Don't go
office.
postal.
Don't go postal.
Don't
Isn't
go
that a
postal.
shame? I remember. Don't go postal, man.
Right.
The Michigan Senate passed the bill on drug tests for welfare recipients. They haven't said what counties they're going to launch it in, but I know one
Right.
will be
We
Wayne
know.
County.
I was just-
We know.
Wayne County, okay.
Oh,
So what do
wow.
you think about that? I think we've mentioned that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
but
have.
we talked about it, but it had not
Yeah.
gone into effect. But State Senator Vince Gregory, he's from Southfield, who's also running for the 14th District Congress, said it was wrong to single out poor people for testing. I'm continually frustrated, he says, by the priorities of this legislation and the ongoing attacks on the low-income residents of the state. The companies we give tax breaks to are not required to be drug tested.
And maybe they should.
Right. We give out tax credits
Exactly.
tax credits to school students and police and fire, and now the only ones subject to drug screening are the poorest of the poor. And some people have brought up that some of these legislators need to be drug
I
tested.
totally agree with
also.
that too, because these are the ones driving policy. That has all of our futures and lives in their hands, so to speak. So I agree with the drug test for welfare recipients. I think there needs to be a measure if where it's not that they're immediately necessarily, they have a chance to get clean if they
Right.
want to. So I think that needs to be
Well, they
something
said they'll
added
give
in
them a
on there.
chance to get help, and then next they would take them off. They would not take the children off, but they would take them off.
I agree
Now
with
that's
that, but the
crazy to take them off, because if you take the parent off, that's going to impact the children as well. So I think if they're going to do it, it needs to be a path forward created. Just don't take them off. And the other piece is, if you're going to do this random drug testing, it should go beyond Wayne County, because again, that's when you're targeting. It's
They
the
say
perception.
they're not. They haven't said which ones, but we just
we know. We know. We know.
We know that Wayne County will be a big part of that. And then somebody brought into the mix, what about the people who use medical marijuana?
That's a whole nother issue. I do contractual work with the feds for individuals who are applying for Social Security disability. I don't see the individuals, but I read over their medical records. And there was a time where we had to consider, and it's still a time, we consider, okay, is this person's disability, psychosis, lack of motivation, depression, is this a factor of their marijuana usage or some other drug usage? Now you have folks who have this legal card, and it's yet to be defined in the agency I work for how we're going to approach this, because now you have individuals who legally are able to smoke marijuana and should not be penalized because this is a medical marijuana card that they have. So they're going to really have to define this. They're going to really have to define this clearly before they roll out this program, because they're going to open themselves up to potential lawsuits.
Wow, right. Because, Rose, you have to leave shortly, I'd like to kind of skip this next one and come back to it and go to Lupita Nyong'o's speech she gave. She's been big. She's won the supporting actor Oscar for 12 Years a Slave.
Yes.
And did an excellent job. But she had given a speech at I think it was the BET luncheon or something, about how she used to be very self-conscious about her color, her complexion, because she's a dark-skinned black woman. And she used to wish she was lighter and everything like that. I mean, she really had gone through some things about that. And her mother said, and I was so impressed with her mother because her mother said, "You can't eat beauty; it doesn't feed you." You know, but let's talk about that color consciousness. You know, as black people, we have all different skin complexions and colors. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
It probably wasn't intentional based on where we got our different hues from, but yeah.
Right. Rose, I know you had posted something about that.
Yeah,
Also.
you know, I've been obsessed, for lack of a better word, with this young lady since I saw her performance in 12 Years a Slave. It just really captured me. But I think in some ways I was surprised to learn, because she grew up a large portion of her life in Africa, so that was even an issue there. So this is, like you say, this color consciousness exceeds even geographic lines, because it's all over that exists. But she has brought the conversation back up, which is good. I'm tired of hearing the conversation, actually. I'll be honest with you, because it shocked me. I didn't realize there was this issue with my culture with color until I got to college. Seriously. Because it was just something I never personally had to encounter, with people saying, "Oh, well, you know, you're not cute because you're not light complected," or what have you. And I was one of those girls growing up that I liked my sisters would always say I like the darkest of the dark, you know, as far as boys go, you know.
You should see my
Kiss by the
husband.
sun.
And I said, "Am I doing this really? Is it intentional or just what?" But it's just a matter of, you just look within your family. You can have different complexions right
Yeah.
in the house,
Yes.
in your family.
Yes.
My mother's darker skin. My father was kind of reddish, you know, and my brother is dark, and my older brother, he is black as shoelip. You know, and we just come like that. So we're supposed to love one another,
Yeah,
no
yeah.
matter what.
But there's a value placed on it. That's the unfortunate part. And even people that I've over the years, I'm shocked by people I consider to be academically educated, you know, or worldly, make comments that lets me know that they are enslaved by this color consciousness as well. And it shocks me, because these are some people that you wouldn't think would have this issue going on within themselves, but it shocks and it also disgusts me, honestly.
It's disgusting. And I know young men now, there's some men I know, they said, "Well, I only like the girls with the long hair and their lighter skin. I only won't give anybody a chance," you know. I mean, what are you looking for? The superficiality of it all? And I remember Eddie Murphy was one who said that. He only, you notice the women he cast were always lighter skin, you know, the Whitley type people.
Honestly, I think it's just, and people won't admit to it, but it's a form of self-hatred.
Hatred.
Yes.
It's a
Right.
form of self-hatred. And you, like you said, Eddie Murphy felt that way, but you know, he's a darker complected
I know.
guy.
Yeah.
So for him to feel that way and not value his own presentation tells me that there's an element of, and sure, it could very well could have been conditioned within him, but an element of self-hatred that needs to be exposed, examined, and kind of just, you know, cut away.
Well, do you think it's historical too?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, come on. This is attitudes can have like a DNA component to them. They're passed on from generation to generation. And so when you go back to slavery time, where the lighter complected people were able to work in the homes, you know, they were treated more favorably than the darker complected, then why wouldn't you want to be lighter complected? I mean, that's just human nature. That's common sense. At that point, while if my skin was lighter, I wouldn't be subject to 16 hours a day in the grueling sun, and or sleeping on dirt floors, or you know, we can, you know, just add to that list. So who wouldn't just common sense and logically say it's better to be this color than this color? But we're not there now, and this is where we have to go in and figure out how to deactivate this conscious gene that's been passed on generation from generation.
What do you think?
I'm thinking too, we live in America here, and I think America does this job of always making women, if you will, feeling like you're not good enough. You're not the right size, your hair is not long enough, your makeup, the lipstick is off. And so I think women in general, well, even as young ladies, always feeling like if you didn't get the guy, it was because you needed to lose the 15 pounds. Or
Right.
your hair wasn't long
Well,
enough.
we're going to
So
continue
all
on
of-
with
yeah.
this conversation. We're going to take a quick break,
Okay.
and so that Rose can do something very special. And I'm excited. But thanks. We're going to continue this conversation, Rose. We're going to take a quick break in just
Great.
a moment. Because I want to ask: have any of you ever been discriminated?
I'm from the South. You know
No.
what race is.
Cheryl said, "Come on, that's a
Is that a
given,
yes?
right?"
That's rites of passage.
Just a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good afternoon again. This is Brenda Perryman, and welcome to Table Talk with Brenda Perryman. And I have Cheryl Ajamu and Tamika Ashford. They're still here, and we're conducting the conversation. And we're talking about skin complexion and skin color, how people's attitudes are still out there about the color of their skin, and how sometimes the darker skin of women like Lupita Nyong'o, she wanted to be lighter. She tried to make this deal with God that if he'd only make her lighter, I mean, it's just crazy. Our young women should not ever feel like that. So, Cheryl, have you ever encountered that? Did they have that kind of?
Yes. I'm from the South, so yes, it was like that. I mean, just growing up, just, as early as I can remember, like kindergarten, the teachers would favor lighter skinned kids over, it was like, as it got darker, the participation was less. So if you were in the play or, anything like that, and we noticed it. I mean, and then us as kids, we started doing it to each other because that's what we saw, because the teacher would say, well, these students are going to be in the play. And then these students, we just be on the side.
And it's funny because you'd be just as good or better,
Right.
but
Mhm.
they use that. What about you?
Interesting enough, I didn't have to go through it, or I didn't go through it when I was a kid, but I saw my sister go through it, who's a dark complexion sister. I've seen classmates, and I did see a lot of favoritism from teachers. A lot of times, I was on that side who got the favoritism. I still love everybody, but, and that was not a good feeling, because even at a young age, 7, 8, 9 years old, I knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
So, when there was a party and only the good kids, if you will, get to go, I was in that group of good kids, and I saw, how my classmates felt. So a lot of times it was those in authority who gave the green light for
Yeah.
folks to feel like it's okay to treat kids differently if they're a different shade.
Well, I remember my cousin. Well, there was a term that was used here in Detroit. It was called elites,
Okay.
which is, the word is elite, but
Okay.
elites, and those were the lighter skinned
Wow.
students who, like, they were middle class and everything. And I remember going over to my cousin's house. She lived in Russell Woods. She went to Cass Tech. They all had long, beautiful hair, and well, I had long hair too, but I don't know how beautiful it was. But anyway, but here's the point: everybody at her parties, they all looked the same. That was very strange to me, and they all talked the same. And my brother said to me, I'll never forget, he said, "But we have more fun than they do," because it seemed like they were trying to be this upper,
This mold,
Yeah.
yeah, and they kind of looked down on people of
Yeah.
darker skin color. And I thought that was so weird. And I've had friends who were lighter skinned who got called yellow and all of this stuff. I mean, golly, it's so much self-hatred, as Rose was
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
If you look at the movie Spike Lee did, School Days, there's
Yes,
that scene when
yes,
they're
good
in the
and black
music,
hair.
good and black
Yeah.
hair. Really, we kind of laughed at that, but it still
was true.
applies today.
Jigaboo.
Jigaboo, all of that.
It was
yeah.
still, it was very timely.
Yeah, that was so unfortunate. And the funny thing was, well, we could get in a whole thing on Spike Lee
Right.
and the way people believed that he felt about women, because Giancarlo Exposito, who played Big Brother Almighty,
Almighty.
he and I had a conversation a few years later, not that many years after the Malcolm X movie and everything. He was here, and I took some of my students to see him talk, and he was talking about he believed he had to stop working with Spike Lee because he believed he had major issues with women because of the way women were depicted in some of his movies.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What's she's got to have it. Well, you
Mo
know,
Better Blues.
more better blues,
Yeah.
right, and so forth. He just saw a lack of respect. The same thing with Lawrence Fishburne. He and Spike Lee got into difficulties about that, you know, too. And he didn't do another movie with Spike Lee after not Do the Right Thing. What was the movie? We were just School Days.
School Days.
He didn't have another movie with him, but it's unfortunate that, you know, there's so many beautiful women.
Absolutely.
One of my daughters, she's darker skinned, and this teacher at my school, I went up and I said, "Oh, this is my daughter," you know, and she said, "Oh, pretty dark girl." Now this was a black woman who says
not
that.
just a pretty girl, it's got to be a
Pretty
dark girl.
Wow.
I mean, wow, it's like I wanted to pimp slap her right there on the spot.
You should have.
I mean, I had no respect for her after that, because what does that say about her? Well, that says something about her,
Yeah.
you know. And did you all have you've known your husband since you were in grade school, right?
Junior high, yeah.
Was he your only boyfriend?
No, he wasn't my boyfriend. He was my boyfriend at school. I couldn't date.
Oh,
I mean, I'm
13.
talking
Okay, Mom,
about
she-
when you got older, when you left high school. Was he your boyfriend in high school?
No.
Oh, good. Okay. So, did you have a preference, or do you have a preference, skin color wise? I'm break it down.
as long as it's a good man. I mean, at this point in life, you know, complexion, I don't care.
Did you once have that?
You know, back in the day, I did prefer the darker brothers. I did.
I am the
But
darker
you know, it's
No, I think of Langston Hughes' poem, "I Too Sing America." I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh, eat well, and grow strong. Anyway,
that's good.
oh, I know that poem. That's the first
I
poem.
too sing America. Oh, yeah.
But I laugh, eat well. What about you? Did you have a particular?
Initially, I liked lighter skinned guys. I think I
Really?
was like, I don't know, in the 7th grade or something. And then as time went on, I guess I just didn't really look at that anymore. I just liked who I liked. I didn't really look at that.
Right.
I like
well,
smart people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because who wants to be with a dumb person?
Right, and that's what I tell. That's what I tell the girls. I said, I said, boys don't want a dumb girl.
Yeah.
They
be a
may
dumb girl.
fool around with dumb
Right.
girls, but they're not always the one. When I say dumb, let me just talk about that. Somebody who doesn't take care of the business in school or out of school, and careless. You know,
Yeah.
Not responsible.
right?
That would be better.
And a lot of times men see certain traits with their mothers that they'd like to see in their wives. They do.
Yeah.
Because that's the first woman that they meet.
Their first love, really.
Their first love. And then they get married and the mother becomes the love down the way. Anyway. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking.
Okay.
But for some people it's like that. I think there's some women who interfere in their sons' marriages and so forth, but that's another thing. I would never think to do anything like that. But what do you think that we as black people could do to stop this? It is a ridiculous thing.
Say something. Check it. When you see it, check it. I think too many of us, when we see things, we just walk past and don't say
Yeah.
anything.
Well, I always did, because as a teacher, the students would tell you, if somebody said, "Oh, I like that dark skin," or light skin, they said, "Don't say that around Miss Perryman. She ain't into that skin thing." And then skin dead, skin dead,
Light skinned.
light skinned, dark skinned.
Dark skinned.
Now,
Wow.
I did have another social issue on here, and that was Countess Bond who had the
Yeah.
lace wig,
The
lace
lace fronts, yeah.
Yeah. Now let's first talk about who she is. She used to be on the Parkers, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Kind
She
of
was,
short actress.
Yeah, she was Kim, right?
I don't know. I never
I
saw
know
the
it was
show.
like Kim and Niecy. I think she was Kim. Because Niecy was.
She was Monique's daughter.
No, not
no,
no.
she was.
Was she? Maybe.
Yeah, she was.
Yes.
Yeah,
The
yeah, she
comedian,
was. Yeah.
I had never gotten a chance to. Well, I never kind of wanted to see that show, but
It was interesting. They had some good episodes.
well, they had her. I remember Monique was chasing after this man.
The
The
professor.
professor.
And that
The
just,
professor.
I said, oh, this is just getting on my nerves. It's too much. This is a dummy mission. You know, I said, she's on a dummy mission here. But Countess Vaughn had a weave. And it was lace front. I never understood the concept of the lace front. Can you all tell me? Does anyone know?
Well, I'm not a weaveologist, so I can't.
I wear my
New
natural
word.
hair.
I just, you know,
Get that
I don't
Webster's
know.
new weaveologist.
A weaveologist. I don't know. I don't know. I think that's where you sew it in or glue it in the front. I don't
it's
know.
glued in or something.
It's glued in.
Yeah.
And she said it took so much of her hair out.
That's an epidemic that's
She was
happening.
allergic to the glue or something, I believe.
Yeah.
Wow. And when you say epidemic,
A couple of years ago, the Links chapter, I think it was a Renaissance chapter, they had a workshop for women, and there was a dermatologist there, and she showed pictures, and this had to be like 5 or 6 years ago. She was on a mission to tell women to stop wearing weave because she was seeing girls that were like 15, 16, and the whole half the front was gone. And that hair follicle is not coming back because they've worn weaves too long, or they've worn them incorrectly, or they've had some type of allergy, allergic reaction, or they have alopecia because, of the damage.
what is
wearing it too long.
alopecia? I've heard that.
When your hair falls out, it's a skin condition for your scalp. So, I mean, it's an epidemic. That was 5 or 6 years ago. And she was begging people to stop doing it.
Well, they didn't. A lot of
I
people
know.
didn't.
I know.
And like I beg my daughters, come on, give your hair a rest.
Because you
My-
got to do that.
My daughter, one of my daughters, she came in, and her hair was done. And she said, "Mom, aren't you going to say anything?" I said, "Oh, I like it." I thought it was a weave. It actually was her hair. She had let her hair, got her hair curled. And I said, "Well," she said, you said you wanted to see our real hair, I said,
Right.
"Yes." Because you can't just do that to your hair all the time.
Scalp's got to breathe.
Yes.
It has got to breathe.
And remember when you were young, they used to oil your scalp?
With the
Oh, yeah.
Queen Bergamot.
Well, mine was
Grease your scalp, yeah.
luster silk. My mother would just, she put oil in my scalp. I wish she could do that nowadays. But why do you think that so many people choose to wear weaves?
Because it's back to what we just talked about.
Self-love,
It's
self-hate,
that self-love.
yeah.
I mean, look, I wore a weave for the first time like 3 months ago. I had like a ponytail. And I did feel different. Because people looked at me different. I'm like, oh, because you see how I look now. So I don't know. I think
You
it's
look
just
fine.
yeah, but I think, it gives you a different attitude, if you will. And
heard
it's
like
what
you
you
can
see.
swing
Yeah,
it.
you need to swing your hair, and it's low maintenance.
Oh,
You don't
yeah,
have to
that's
really
right.
comb it. You don't have to really do anything to it. So some of that's convenience, but I think some of it may be still that, they may feel like they get a little more attention if their hair is longer, because if men are responding to that, that might be it. So,
Well, I've always worn my natural hair. As you can see, it's short. But a couple of times I did wear a wig just for fun.
Yeah.
I was amazed by the men who were
The
just
response.
Yeah, I was amazed. It was like triple. Like if it was 100, it was 300. So I was amazed by that.
yeah. It's
I was
different. You get
amazed.
a
It's a different vibe. It's a-
yeah.
Yeah, I remember once years ago, in fact, somebody put the picture on Facebook. I had a little weave in the front. This lady I was going to get my hair done, she said, "Let me try this." I don't even know. It was in the 80s. And yeah, I felt different and everything, but still there was maintenance. I was self-conscious about, am I covering up the little line and all this? I said, this is way too much trouble. I don't like trouble, you know. And we have Patricia on the line. Good afternoon, Patricia. Hello.
Yeah, how you doing?
Fine.
How you doing?
We're
Great.
Can
good.
you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
You know what? I like what y'all saying, but you know what? I used to wear the braids. I used to dye my hair, and every time a style come up, I wanted to wear the style, and it took my hair off so bad, and I said, no more. I let all that go, and my hair done grow back, and I wear my own, and I'm not thinking about, I don't care what other people do, I'm doing me. You don't like it, bye-bye. And I love my own hair. But I don't have a problem with what people wear. They wear what they want to wear. That's all I want to say.
Oh, thank you. And that's good. I don't have a problem. Well, I had kind of a problem with my daughters only because I wanted to see their hair. But my daughter Heather, she's always been infatuated with long hair. So right now I could go over her house. Right now her hair is down to there. I said, "Woo-wee." But you know, I just don't want it to damage you. You know. Because a lot of people have liked the fact that Lupita Nyong'o is not wearing. I mean, she wears her little afro.
Natural, yeah.
And I noticed that Wendy Williams has said, "Oh, I don't like that." She doesn't like any short hair whatsoever.
Okay.
Like last year when Viola Davis wore her. She talked about her. You know, and Wendy Williams believes in wigs. Well, that's fine for you, but don't put down other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She just doesn't like short hair. And you know, I thought, but you know, art is all aesthetic. I thought that Lupita Nyong'o looked real nice on the night of the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Wendy Williams said, nah, no, didn't like anything about
Look
it.
at the source. So.
Yeah, you got to kind of
Right.
consider the source. But my whole thing is like Naomi Campbell. This side of her hair is gone. She could put that thing back and it is gone.
Because she's been wearing weaves for 20 years probably.
Yeah, she has. And that's unfortunate. And just be careful. And some of these weaves are very, very expensive.
Let me
Oh,
tell
they're
you, I
not
had
cheap.
sticker shock. When I went to get my first weave, I went to the store to get it, and they said $89. I was like, what? That's for 3 packs? One pack. 18 inches. 1 pack.
Well, weave pimp isn't going to get me. Everybody. We didn't get through all our subjects again today. This is the
gotta have
fastest hour in show business. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you again next week for Table Talk with Brenda Perryman. Thank you, ladies, for
Thank
quite
you.
an invigorating conversation.
Thank
Thank you.
Oh, see you next week.